Yesterday we had some great programs. Today, more great information. Thank Christian and Sarah, and on my behalf also for all of you attending, but especially thank you to our sponsors. We can't recognize them enough, but issue panel sponsors: Excel Energy, Eklund Hanlon, Lockheed Martin, Networking Reception. Oh, that was fun last night. Thank you. Connect for Health Colorado, Pinnacle Workers' Comp Insurance, venue sponsors: FDR, Centura, Black Hills Energy, the luncheon sponsors, and that was a good lunch yesterday. Yeah. Chaffa, St. Mary's Medical Center, Mountain West Credit Union, and Colorado Rural Electric Association. General sponsors: Viera Wireless, Colorado State Treasurer Dave Young, Colorado Cattlemen's Agricultural Land Trust, Tri-State Generation and Transmission, American Petroleum Institute of Colorado, and our refreshment sponsors: David J. Cole and Associates, Mark and Kathy Fackler, University of Colorado, Brian Ahern, and Colorado Gaming Association. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to introduce our next guest.
Good job, Kathy. Good morning, everyone. A few minutes ago, Christian said, I gave you your favorite elected official to introduce this morning. I was like, thank you so much, because I love to introduce our guest. We have a lot of conversations offline about what needs to happen in the state and what we would like to have happen in the state, especially with regard to how we serve each other. And so we have, as I told you yesterday, one of the things that we really want to put front of mind, especially in this election year, and with everybody, is not only who am I serving? Am I actually serving the people who I'm supposed to be serving? But especially when it comes to our leaders, who are they serving? And our little metrics for that is, do they show up? Are they engaged? And do they listen? And one of the things that I have learned over the last few years is that when it comes to engaging, to listening, and to acting on what has been brought to him without regard for party or anything else, but honestly to serve Colorado, Phil Weiser has consistently shown up, listened, and acted on what we've asked him to do. And so with that, please help me welcome Phil Weiser.
It's wonderful to be with you. I want to leave as much time as I can for a conversation, but I do want to put some points on the table. First, our team members who are here, who are committed to working with you all: Kurt Morrison, my Deputy Attorney General for Intergovernmental Relations; Diana Noyes, who's my Community Outreach Director; Heidi Williams, who is our Opioid Response Director, and her deputy, new to the Department of Law, Jamie Felt. So we have a team here because we've got a lot of work to do together. And it's what Sarah said. It's about showing up, engaging, listening, working together to solve problems. And that is our mantra, and we're going to keep doing it. And I want to talk about a few different areas. First, I do want to just congratulate Christian, Kathy, and Sarah on putting this together. This is a really important tradition. I appreciate you doing it. And we need to keep hearing from rural Colorado. The first example is one that came, I think it was even during when I was running in the campaign. I was in southeast Colorado. I don't know if Phil Rico's here yet, but I may have talked to Phil on that trip or a trip thereafter. What Phil and others said down in Trinidad and down in our sort of southern part of our state is we have a lot of housing that has asbestos. It's blighted. You may have drug users living there. The people who owned it are gone. And then we don't have enough housing for people who might be living here. Can you do anything about that? And I said, I don't know, but if I'm Attorney General, I'll figure it out. So I get into the office and I asked the question, are we doing anything related to housing? They said, oh yeah, we got this $60 million in this case against the banks for all the BS they pulled around the foreclosure mess. And I said, oh, how much of that money is going south of Pueblo? Exactly, zero. And this is the important point that a lot of people don't get. Government is not about Democrats or Republicans. It's about innovation or inertia. Here's inertia for you. Well, we have these government programs and they just don't work south of Pueblo. So we're not giving any of the money south of Pueblo. I said, bullshit. We can create a new program that meets the needs of those communities. And that's what we're doing. And when I was in Trinidad for the Action 22 conference, I got to see one of the first homes being rehabilitated, training students. This is a win-win-win. It's a job training program. We're working with community colleges. It's rehabilitating housing, which is currently not usable, to make it usable for people to live, putting it back into the local economy. And we see this as driving forward because the property is going to be worth more, and then that money can go back into the program. And so we're all in on this effort. It's called COPPER, the Colorado Partnership for Education and Rural Revitalization. A rock star in our office, Vanessa Devereaux, who actually grew up in San Luis, is the one leading this effort. And so that's the type of work we can do together, solving problems through showing up, listening, and collaborating. I recognize right now is both a challenging time, but also a time of some opportunities for rural Colorado. And to talk about those opportunities, working with Sarah in particular, we're going to do this rural resource effort, and we're going to be looking how can our office support rural communities looking for additional resources. Because right now, there's all this money and opportunities the federal government is going to start making available. But if we don't take advantage of it well, we will have missed that opportunity. And I want to do everything I can to understand what the needs are, to communicate where the opportunities are, and help support those so that we can look back at this moment and say, when there was a lot of transitions happening, we took advantage of the opportunity to advocate for Colorado. One of the ways we best do that is cutting through all the divisiveness, all the noise that is the state of our politics, particularly in Washington, D.C. I get to live in Colorado, where 94% of the laws we pass in our General Assembly are on a bipartisan basis. Every major initiative we've pushed has been on a bipartisan basis. I work with state AGs from across the U.S. on issues, the opioid epidemic, consumer protection, antitrust suits against Google on a bipartisan basis. What's happened in Washington, D.C., a breakdown, a dysfunction in the Article 1 branch of our government is a travesty. It is a threat to the functioning of our system of government. How do we fix it is by how we here on the ground start thinking about what it means to be a citizen in a democratic republic. What it means to me is respectful engagement. What Roy Romer would say is all truth is partial, which means that no one sees all the truth. Someone else may see something that I'm not seeing. I want to understand their perspective. That commitment drives, again, we're calling the Ginsburg-Scalia initiative, trying to emulate the relationship that Justice Ginsburg and Scalia had, which was one of respectful engagement, even when people see things differently, which is why I am committed to showing up everywhere. It's also why we're working on this through a group called Unify America. It's going to be a unified challenge to set up these conversations and then to build civic education material, which is about how we listen to one another, how we work together. I want to underscore a point that seeing Michael here, we've talked about, which is broadband, that I've been on this for a very long time, since Bill Ritter was running for governor and I chaired his innovation council. We have yet another opportunity because in the infrastructure law is going to be a lot of money for broadband. We got to do this right. We've seen in Colorado what it means to do it right. And the people who worked on that Project Thor, kudos to you. That was a real accomplishment. Other projects, not so much. So how do we do this right? Our office is all in to work with the state broadband coordinator. We need to know from people on the ground where there are needs. We need to build smart fiber networks that are redundant and resilient, because if you only have one strand of fiber and it gets cut and it's your hospital, that's a world of hurt. Project Thor is so redundant that when CDOT's fiber went down and what happened in Glenwood Canyon, Project Thor's capacity still worked, cutting down what would have been a longer road to get that service restored on that highway. This is critical to us. We need to take advantage of this opportunity. We're all in. Water is life in Colorado. And there's actually a poem by Thomas Farrell at the Capitol, it says, in Colorado is a land where life is inscribed in water. We have to manage, protect, and be smart about our water. There is a right way to manage our water, and there's a wrong way. The water plan that was worked on by so many people has certain commitments, certain goals around how we think about water. One of those is we don't see a wholesale buy and dry of a community that guts their lifeblood, like happened in Crowley County. There's a proposal right now to take water from the San Luis Valley and to bring it to Douglas County, spending these Recovery Act funds. This, to me, is a perversion of what these funds should be for. This is not the type of water infrastructure projects that I'd like to see us do. And I worry about an aquifer that's already depleted in the San Luis Valley being put into a worse situation. We can do great, smart, innovative things together on water. We need more money. This is a huge, huge goal. I know you're going to have a lot of issues to lobby on when you talk to people. Let me give you my number one pitch. $100 million needs to be invested from these Recovery Act funds in water. Why is that so important? Because we need these water infrastructure projects, because when you have less and variable water, if you're not finding ways to manage it and store it, then you're in a, again, world of hurt. Second point, the Infrastructure Act has mostly matching funds. So if we don't take this other discretionary government money to basically buy us some room and then free up the state money we can have, we're not going to have matching money for the Infrastructure Act. And I really want us to look back at this moment and said we did everything we can to put Colorado in a strong position for a future, and that means planning ahead and investing for water. There's a lot more I could say about water, but I'll go on to competition in beef. We know we don't have enough processing capacity. We also have an opportunity there, which is the state and the federal government is making money available to build more capacity that would create more competition. We're also trying to look at the spot market and see what, if anything, we can do in what now is a very thinly traded market, where we're a lot more concerned about manipulation happening, because the equation that you all are hearing about, ranchers are getting paid less for their cattle, consumers are paying more for beef. Something is not working along the way in that supply chain. That calls for vigilance, attention, public policy. We are doing some antitrust investigations in this area as well. We're going to be looking at every angle we can. Finally, I mentioned before the opioid epidemic, and I'm not going to say a lot here because you've got Heidi who's going to talk about this, but we have $400 million coming to Colorado. And this was, again, showing up in the parts of our state that have been so hard hit hearing about this crisis. We said we're going to do everything we can, and we're bringing $400 million back. And we're standing up these regional collaboratives, which I know many of you are going to play leading roles in. Please talk to Heidi, talk to Jamie about this opportunity, because again, it's a once in a generation opportunity to change the model where we can have more effective awareness and prevention. And with fentanyl right now, it is a deadly threat to our communities, particularly our kids. We also need to have more treatment and recovery programs, because it doesn't work to have people just recycling in and out of jails when truly the long-term answer is going to be finding them a path to treatment and recovery. And right now I have about 16% of the treatment capacity we need. So we have a long way to go. So we have a lot of work to do in our department. We're committed to doing it the right way, which is listening to and working with the people of Colorado. And as long as I can serve, that's what I'll be doing. So I'd love your thoughts, questions, and ideas.
Ivani?
First of all, thank you for coming today. And I'm Bonnie Peterson with Associated Governments of Northwest Colorado. You visited with our group and reached out to our group last year to talk about the opioid issue, which we tremendously appreciated, because it doesn't seem like sometimes there's a lot of outreach from the Front Range, and you even came to our meeting, which I think was in Meeker or
Meeker.
It was, yeah, it was a long trek for you. So we really appreciate you reaching out there. And one of the things that came out of that meeting is your assistance with our efforts to try to get a voice on the wolf planning issue. I can't thank you enough for that. That was absolutely so special, and our members are so thankful that and help with that situation. So I mostly wanted to thank you for that. We have been working with Region 10 on their middle mile broadband project, and they're working to do some of that redundancy as well. So we need some help in the Northwest region between the Thor project with Northwest COG and Region 10. We've got some gaps we need to fill in there. So we're looking at how we do that. And then when you talk about water, we have a critical need that I'd like you to be aware of. I don't know if you can do anything about it, but we have a reservoir in Northwest Colorado that is about to silt in completely. Already it's impacting the water processing system for Rangeley. I mean, they're processing mud essentially. They're trying to replace that because they've done the studies. It's more cost effective to do the new reservoir than it is to dredge the old one. And that it's a really great project because it's going to have positive implications for some endangered species. It's going to have positive implications in terms of a water call, that sort of thing. But we're hearing in the background that if we get to the point where we're ready to try to construct that, and they're in the engineering and permitting phase right now, they're going to sue to try to stop it. And I don't know if there's anything, any guidance you and your office might be able to provide us to help us maybe address those concerns and figure out how we avoid that, because we are really at an urgent stage right now. So I wanted to ask you if you put that on your radar screen and help us know if there's something that we can do. And I just want to thank you so much for reaching out to rural parts of the state and being accessible. That is so important.
If you can make sure to connect to Kurt and Diana on both the water project and see how we can help you, because I think you're smart to be thinking ahead. You have a great story to get out, and unfortunately, some of these projects do take way too long because it ends up in litigation. And if we can get out front and help you, we'd love to get to that point sooner. And then Diana on the broadband issue, so we can have that. We got someone else in our office who is a point person there. I'd love to make sure we connect you. Her name is Sam Moody, so we want to make sure that's on our work. And then on the Wolves Point, it was a pleasure. The critical thing I would just say is your voices matter. And that was a good example of hearing what you had to say. Another good example is Pause, which I know many of you saw and is a painful reminder of how few people know where their food comes from. The fact that that got as much traction as it did. I was able to actually help give a grant to the Pueblo Food Project, which is about educating people about where their food comes from, where there's not enough of that awareness, and to create more of those local food ecosystems. Because right now, our supply chains have gotten a little bit screwed up where you're having to bring, cattle to Wyoming or something to get it processed to then come to who knows where to come back. We got to do better. And so there's a lot of work we can do together, and having these conversations matter.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on what Bonnie said regarding the. Yeah, I would like to follow up on what Bonnie said, the things you can see regarding the water project in Northwest Colorado. This water project, I think, is further along than maybe your the impression you've got. Okay. It is to the point of the permitting process through BLM with NEPA, and our county just committed $4 million to help that project get through that permitting process. And one of the reasons it's taken so long up to this point, because they were tied up in court with our own state to get those water rights. And our water plan calls for water storage. So that was a frustrating thing on our part, to be wasting time and resources just to acquire the water rights. Finally did get negotiated. But anyway, this is a very important project, and it's not in the infant stages. It's been in the planning for years, and we really hope that any help you can give us to prevent further litigation trying to stop it when it is so desperately needed, it fits right into that water need you're talking about. So I just want to emphasize that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. We need to get more awareness and see what we can do.
Thank you very much. Also, thank you very much for taking it and Roosevelt. I appreciate that. My question for you is about this renewable water resources thing and what they're trying to do with Douglas County. In your opinion, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but is that legal? And if the state engineer decides that they can do that, is there anything you can do to help support?
So I, as an elected official, can and sometimes do step out of the ordinary role of merely being the lawyer for, in this case, it's the engineer, to being the lawyer for the people of Colorado. On this issue, I have stepped out. And so what I can say is I am with you on this. And insofar as I can find legal arguments, we will be working to press them. And insofar as I can discourage the Douglas County commissioners from going down this road, I will be doing that as well, and have been pretty public on it.
This is Kathy over here from the Eastern Plains, and it sounds like water's on all of our radars. Ours has to do with Nebraska. Ours isn't even an in-state war. We're worried about the raiders from across the border. Have you got any thoughts on this? This kind of came out of the blue, and we're not having a lot of luck finding out about this 1,000-year-old compact or whatever.
100, but yes. So first thing I would say, I know Sarah did, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Remember the cover? Said, don't panic. So first, don't panic. This is unlike your project, this thing really is in its infancy. And so I don't know how much there's really going to be. There's a lot of questions they're going to have to work through on this, legal, operational, fiscal. So I personally would say, as I look at the water challenges we have, this possibility is something we need to be concerned about, take seriously, but on the list is far from being an imminent concern. To the extent it actually becomes real, we will absolutely be looking at and be vigilant about our position. This is something that I want to underscore, and I haven't gotten this message out. New Mexico, Texas, all these other states, they hire outside counsel to do their water law issues, and they pay a fortune. We built a law firm here in Colorado in the Attorney General's office that's second to none, handling all these issues at the Supreme Court, negotiating with other states, evaluating issues like this one with Nebraska. So we're on it, and we will continue to be on it. And if it ends up materializing, we're going to then have to potentially taking some steps. But at this point, it's hard to know how real it really is. Yeah, Brian?
Hey, good morning, Mr. Weiser. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming down and visiting us down on the Western Slope and Telluride. My question for you this morning was, when you were first elected, you did a panel discussion on Bitcoin and blockchain. Is there any kind of updates that you could potentially give us for any policy changes or how that's shaping, or for some people that don't understand the technical issues in regards to blockchain and Bitcoin?
So let me offer a few points. First, speaking about technology, last year we passed the third ever in the nation comprehensive data privacy law that we're going to be implementing, and we're going to be at the frontier of that important work. I am having a panel discussion, actually a fireside chat with the Wyoming AG and myself a week from today. We'll be talking about Bitcoin, which is an area in cryptocurrencies where Wyoming has actually passed some legislation on this issue, and we're still looking at that. We're also, by the way, looking at blockchain technologies for water contracts, and that's something that's being studied as we think about how we manage our water. So this is still early days discussions as we try to understand, look at this technology and be able to act smartly about it. We don't have any concrete announcements or steps at this point, but it's important that we be thinking about it. It is real, it's having an impact, and there's gonna be a lot of public policy implications for it.
Not to mention blockchain with water.
Yes, I did just mention that, actually.
Because that's.
Good morning, Phil, and welcome back to the Western Slope, even when we come to the Eastern Slope. We appreciate that. You mentioned several things in your opening remarks: broadband, which you know I'm a firm believer in; water, which is only digital; broadband, only digital water; and addiction. But you also touched on another thing that I think really affects the Western Slope, and that was education about where their food source comes from, how we convey that message from the producers to the end users. Not only supply chain, but just the perception, the reality of perception going on. What do you see in your mind that we on the Western Slope could do to help expedite that education?
Let's follow up on this, because this is something that I'm looking to think how we scale up. For those of you who know about the Pueblo Food Project, it's a very impressive model focused on this education in, I think, every high school in Pueblo on this topic. So it's a big deal. Second, it's trying to encourage the supply chain issues. Sometimes you hear it called farm to table. And then third, something I'm really excited about in the Western Slope, which is entrepreneurship in food. There's a lot of opportunities in Colorado for entrepreneurs to create new products. So I was in, for example, I'm trying to remember, I think if they were in Montezuma County, it was an apple cider operation supported by this group that I had helped start called Startup Colorado. So there's a lot of and they're focused on rural entrepreneurship. So there's a lot we can do. As for what we do on the education front, I think like the civic education issue I talked about, I think we have to think hard. And by the way, there's a huge public health benefit when people, know about what real food looks like and where it comes from. They may eat better as a result. So there's a lot of opportunity here. We're at the very early stages right now. I'm trying to learn from this Pueblo Food Project and think hard, how might we build that up and scale that up? Because in my mind, if we could do better education about where food comes from and better civics education, both of those I think would make a real difference.
Well, and you also thank you for that. You also made one other comment I really want to call out: respectful engagement.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of your opening lines, and we truly applaud you for coming over and seeing the different things we have in all areas. Thanks for listening, and thanks for helping with the respect.
Well, I do worry about this urban-rural divide, and that there's not enough relationships and not enough connectivity, both physical broadband connectivity, but also personal connectivity. So we need to keep working on it. I truly believe Colorado can be a model for our nation in these regards. And we've got so many people here who are living examples of what that means and why it matters. And coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people are thinking, I could live anywhere. Maybe I'll live in Craig, Colorado. And we have to find our way through those opportunities and build relationships as fellow citizens. And I'm committed to that.
We have time for just two quick questions. We have one here, and then this gentleman has our last one.
Not much of a question, more of a thank you. Todd Weaver, Archuleta County Attorney. I want to say thank you for you and your office on behalf of myself and my county commissioners for the swift action that you took in regard to our propane issue down in Archuleta County. For those who aren't aware, we had a propane supplier, quite frankly, couldn't fill tanks. Didn't have the personnel power. Well, I'm not going to go into too much detail of why, but because of state law, of course, one company cannot fill the tank with another propane company. The Attorney General's office stepped in, got a kind of a TRO, then an injunction allowing other companies to fill the propane tank of this supplier. We had citizens who were under 10% of propane tanks out of rural Archuleta County after a big snowstorm that dumped 3 feet of snow on us. And so that pretty much saved the heat and lives of many citizens of Archuleta County. And we deeply appreciate the efforts that your office made in that matter. So thank you.
Relationships matter, and you guys all know this, and we're working. We want to keep building them before we need them, and we were able to work with you, our community engagement operation. This was an unseemly actor. I didn't even mention this, so thanks for mentioning it. Consumer protection is among the most important work we do, and one of the things that's really been terrible during the pandemic is any number of actors who have been irresponsible and in some cases downright wrong in how they behaved. And this guy is a great example, which is this is like a big health issue. You don't give people heat during a real major cold snap. People can die. And this person was essentially like, that's not my problem. And we're like, well, we're fixing it. And so we worked together to do that. Another one, by the way, was Gunnison County. The AG of Texas was threatening them early on in the pandemic, and we worked with their county attorney very effectively. Kurt Morrison did, David Baumgarten, and so we got some good results there. This is core to us. We work closely with local governments on a range of issues on heat, on water, on public health, obviously opioids. So thank you, a real pleasure. And if you know of any such scams, let us know about it, either directly in our office or stopfraudcolorado.gov. We're all in. We just shut down some testing operation that was pretty shady for basically not giving people results or not following appropriate PPE requirements, not following reporting requirements, telling people they were certified to do the testing when they weren't. So we want to stay on this. We need your engagement. We need your input.
Hi, I'm Bob Lativi from the San Luis Valley. I guess my question for you, we've been for years struggling to get redundancy with our transmission line. For a couple of reasons, we're at risk, of our main line coming in much past. Second reason, as some of our ground goes out of production because of water issues, we maybe have opportunities there to develop more solar, but we have no way to really get it out. So I don't know whether eminent domain is a pathway to look at getting over the East Range or not, but it's certainly been a struggle for Tri-State and XL over the years. I don't know how your office could maybe help with that, but we appreciate you taking a look into that.
We'll absolutely take a look. This is a hard one. It's a national challenge for those who know the lay of the land. If you put in like a gas pipeline, they have certain ways to facilitate siting. But for these electric transmission lines, like the ones you need for solar, it has been very hard. So we will absolutely look at it. Right now, I don't know the legal tools are there, to be totally straight. So we'll look to see what isn't there and what or how could be done to get them there. But it may not be a quick or easy one, unfortunately.
We have one final super quick comment.
Okay, everybody, I thought he was just helping the Eastern Plains. Now, I see that he's helped one regions and stuff. I've been around a long time, and I haven't seen this in a long time. That guy, Attorney General, has been out in all of our areas, going out to the places that nobody else was going. I am so proud of this man.